Session 4. In session 4, basically we'll be discussing about GSM, Global System for Mobile Communication. So we'll be discussing this topic under these various headings. We'll be first discussing the introduction, followed by mobile services, then system architecture, radio interface, protocols, localization and calling, handover, security, and then we'll be discussing GPRS. So let us start with the learning objectives. After going through this session, the learners will be able to understand the mobile services. There are three types of mobile services offered by GSM, which are bearer service, tele service, and supplementary service. How each services differs from each other, and what are the various services comes under each categories that they'll be able to understand. And also they'll be able to understand the system architecture of GSM. Basically, how the GSM network works, what are the important components of its architecture, and how the various components interconnect with each other, and how the entire working happens. So, the learners will be having clarity on the radio subsystem, network and switching subsystem, and operational subsystem. And also, the learners will be understanding the radio interface, the working methodology of the radio interface of GSM, Global System Mobile Communication. And the learners will have a clarity on protocols, localization, and calling, handover. Handover means the mobile station is getting switched from one base station to another base station. How all these things happens. So these things the learners will be able to understand. Further, the learners will be understanding the GPRS working methodology. So let us start with the introduction. So GSM, as we all know, is the most successful mobile telecommunication system, and it is used by more than 800 million peoples in more than 190 countries. Okay. In the early 1980s, in the early 1980s, in Europe, there was many numerous coexisting analog mobile phone system standards are available, and they were all following similar standards, but they are using different frequencies. Okay, so to avoid this, for a second generation digital system, to avoid this for the second generation system, so there are numerous technologies and they are not compatible with each other. So to avoid this problem, what Europe thought, in the sense, they formed a group, and that group is called as Group Special Mobile. And that group is called as Group Special Mobile, and this group was formed in 1982. But later, this was renamed as GSM, as Global System for Mobile Communication. Later, this group was renamed as a Global System for Mobile, mobile, mobile Communication. Okay. So, so UMTS at the same time, Universal Mobile Telecommunication System, they are also trying to standardize the mobile phones communication throughout the world. Okay, so they also formed a group, and that group is called as 3GPP, Third Generation Partnership Project. Okay, and GSM was transferred to 3GPP. Okay, so GSM is also looking for something similar. That is, they are particularly focused on Europe, but the whole idea is same. So GSM was transferred to 3GPP, and further development is combined with 3G development. Okay, 3GPP assigned new numbers to all GSM standards. 3GPP, that is third generation partnership project, they started assigning new numbers for GSM standards. So the primary goal of the GSM was to provide a mobile phone system that allows users to roam throughout Europe and to avail all teleservices. Okay, so in that context, they proposed the initial system with a lot of documentation. They proposed the initial system. Okay, so GSM is actually a second generation system. GSM is actually a second generation system replacing the first generation analog system. The first generation systems were analog systems, and GSM is the one which replaces that. Okay. So the initial deployment of GSM, it was also called as GSM 900. It was also called as GSM 900, and typically it worked with a frequency of 890 to 915 megahertz for uplink, and with a frequency of 935 to 965 megahertz for downlink. So that GSM is called as GSM 900. Later, many versions of GSM were introduced. One such version is GSM 1800. GSM 1800, which is also called as DCS, Digital Cellular Systems. GSM 1800 is also called as DCS, which is Digital Cellular System. This GSM 1800, it operates at a frequency of 710 to 785 megahertz for uplink, and 1805 to 1880 megahertz for downlink. Okay, and there is another version of GSM which is called as GSM 1900, which is specifically used in US, and it operates at a frequency of 1900 megahertz, and it uses 1815 to 1910 megahertz for uplink and 1930 to 1990 megahertz for downlink. So we have already discussed what is uplink and what is downlink. The communication from the mobile station to the base station is called as uplink, and the communication from the base station to the mobile station is called as downlink. There is also another GSM which is called as GSM 400 was proposed to deploy GSM at 450.4 to 457.6 megahertz for uplinks and 460.4 to 467.6 megahertz for downlink. So this system was proposed with the aim of replacing analog systems in sparsely populated areas. Okay. There is a GSM system uh, that was used in several European countries for railroad systems. For railroad system, and that particular GSM is called as GSM rail. GSM rail, or it is also called as GSM-R, or it is also in short it is called as GSM-R. So this system, in addition to providing the facilities, standard facilities, it also offered many additional services which are unavailable using the normal public GSM. Using the normal public GSM, the services that are not available, so some additional services were also provided by GSM-R. So GSM-R offers 19 exclusive channels for railroad operators. It offered 19 GSM-R. It offered 19 exclusive channels for railroad communications for voice and data traffic. Okay. The special features of these systems includes emergency call with acknowledgements and also it includes services like VGCS and VBS. So VGCS represents voice group call service. It is something like a group call. And VBS represents voice broadcast call service. Voice broadcast call service. It's a broadcast. It is one side communication. So one person can communicate to a group, but nobody can reply back. Okay. So these are called as advanced speech call systems, ASCI. These are called as advanced speech call systems, ASCI. Calls are also Calls can also be prioritized in GSM Rail. GSM Rail also supports prioritized calls. That is, a high priority call can preempt a low priority call. High priority call can preempt a low priority calls. And calls have very short setup times. The setup time required to initiate a call is very less. Emergency calls can be set up in less than 2 seconds, and group calls can be set up in less than 5 seconds. Calls can be directed, for example, to all users at a certain location, all user uh, with a with a certain functions, or all users with a certain number space. Okay. So, so these are some of the additional features that are provided by GSM-R. But one of the most sophisticated feature provided by GSM-R is the control of trains, switches, gates, and signals. Trains that are not traveling faster than 160 km per hour can control all gates, switches, and signals through GSM-R itself. GSM-R can control all gates, switches, and signals of the trains that are not traveling more than 160 kilometer per hour. Okay, so whichever the trains that are not faster than 160 kilometer per hour, those trains gates, switches can be controlled by GSM-R. Okay, and GSM-R, if the train is moving faster than 160 kilometer per hour, still GSM-R can control to a certain extent. Okay, so this is about the uh, introduction to GSM, Global System for Mobile Communication. Okay, so basically we have discussed how the term GSM was coined and what is the motivation behind that, and what are the different versions of GSM, and then we have discussed in detail about GSM rail. Okay, so this is a brief introduction about GSM, Global System for Mobile Communication. So in further lectures, we'll be discussing in detail about the functionality of GSM, and how it operates and its other aspects. Okay. So let us stop here. Thank you.